Hello and welcome back to the British and Irish Eagles podcast, and it's a win for the Birds. A win for the Birds. The Eagles get through what some soccer fans might call getting through to a quarter-final, we might call it in soccer terms, this coming Sunday on the 8th. Excuse me, not the 8th. What day is it, Phil?
I don't know the date, but it's 8
On the
p.m.
19th, I don't know what my days are. On the 19th of January, we will be playing the LA Rams after the Rams beat out quite convincingly the Vikings, something which we'll get into whether we're happy or unhappy with that. We're obviously going to talk about the Eagles' win against the Green Bay Packers, who basically, like, it was like a game of hangman. Like, they kept losing one of their limbs, until the end, like the opposite to hangman, and decimated by injuries. I'm sure a lot of you listening into this podcast have heard a lot of mixed reviews from different commentators on the Philadelphia Eagles this week. Some people saying, they played a defensive game, they played a safe game, and they got the W, and that's all we should worry about. And others saying, at some point they're going to need to throw the bloody ball. At some point they're going to need to take some risks, and both things are true. We'll get into that. We'll also get into the good, the bad, and the damn right sexy. And we will look ahead to the playoff quarterfinal, I'm going to call it, the divisional round against the LA Rams. So good matchup. We hammered them in mid-season, but they're not necessarily the same team now as they were back then. And we're recording at 5:13 p.m. on a Tuesday, late afternoon, early evening, or 5 p.m. I don't know whether to call that late afternoon or early evening. Phil, where would you stand on that? Would you call this early evening or late afternoon?
I don't know, man. Every hour these days for me just blurs into one. I don't know what time of day it is. I don't know what day of the week it is. So we'll go with early evening.
Early evening. All right, there you go. There you go. Evening started, and that means I can have a bottle of Corona, which I am having in this glass right here. Good stuff. Phil, welcome back to the podcast, my friend. How are your nerves on Sunday night during the game? You weren't very active in the chat, I noticed, probably because you didn't want any spoilers, but also because you're dealing with a young child. Or was it just nerves? What was going on in your mind on
I
Sunday?
think it was all of the above for sure. Being that we're all watching it on various different streams, some people, and obviously the people that are watching it on Sky get about a 30-second advantage, and it does ruin it a little bit. But I tend to sort of mute the chat and have it open, so I can see the message if I look at my phone, but it's not buzzing every second, and I can comment if I want. But like you said, this time I had my daughter with me, almost 2 weeks old. That was 2 weeks old. That watching the game, and had to do a couple of feeds, and I think in the end it's just that combined with the nerves meant that I was like, there's no need for me to get involved. I'm not on my phone like typing like everyone else. I was kind of watching some of the messages, chipping in when I had a second, but generally it's quite nice to sort of be chilled. She was sleeping on my shoulder, kept me sort of calm, I suppose.
When was she? This is an important question. What periods of the game was she awake versus asleep? Do you remember?
I think I fed her towards the third quarter, so I think she kind of woke up in the second half while things were sort of completing, and then she fell asleep when she realised we'd comfortably won the game, so she went back to sleep.
I think we need to make sure, Phil, that they're defeating and that she's, Evelyn is awake for the game next week against the Rams. We've got to keep this tradition. It's like wearing the same jersey like Tony does, if until we lose. I think
that's the same. That's the same for me. It's week 2 of my Smith Kelly Green Fuse jersey, so the streak keeps going with that one. The AJ Brown one I'm wearing now was the previous one, but then we lost to the Commanders, and that one's been retired from game day. But I can still wear it now because it's nice. It's a nice jersey.
So I've worn my. You all know about my jersey mishaps over the years. I've got like 3 jerseys that I can't wear, in Wentz, Sanders, and Reddick. So I only have Hurts and AJ Brown at my disposal to wear. So I've been rocking the Hurts jersey all season. The one game I didn't wear a jersey on was the loss to Washington.
Wow.
The Hertz jerseys, the green Kelly Green Fuse specifically, Hertz jerseys been back on. It's a little tighter than it was when I bought it when we went over last time to Philadelphia. All right, good enough. Good chit chat there to get us into the podcast. Right, let's get into it. Tony can't join us this week. He is running and hiding away from his Jahan Dotson take on the podcast last week. He was a bust. Tony, if you're listening in, shame on you for dodging this podcast. No, I'm only joking. He's got a lot of admin work to do. He's heading off, the bastard, to Philadelphia this coming Saturday. He's managed to tie it in with a work trip. Of course, he has. So he's going to be there on Sunday, live at the link. And hopefully, Katie isn't listening into this podcast, but I did text him this morning and say, if we make it through to the NFC Championship, I might not be able to resist going out there to join him for it. But we'll see whether it's in Detroit or whether it's in Philadelphia.
That was what I was going to say. Yeah, if
Might make
in
it.
Detroit, would that inhibit it? If we have
I
to, would you go
don't
to
know. I
Detroit?
mean, probably cost a bit more on flights,
Yeah.
cost a bit more on accommodation, and tickets because I would imagine one of our only avenues would be Philly sports trips or Tony's connections, and um, because it comes with a package, it's not as cheap as getting a normal ticket. So yeah, look, we'll see. Um, they need to win first against the Rams. We can't get ahead of ourselves, and it's going to be a tough game. And while I said I wanted the Rams over the Vikings on pretty much all channels leading up to yesterday's game. Now that the Rams have won in the way in which they won, I'm wondering whether be careful what you wish for. Is something that might come back to bite me. But anyway, look, let's get into the game. Let's get into the game against Packers, 22-10, and the Eagles say, no, Pack, no, you are not progressing to the divisional round. The game wasn't smooth. I think by now, if you're expecting us to come onto this podcast and be really effusive about the Eagles, then I don't know what you're expecting. It wasn't a smooth game. There were moments in the game where I was concerned we weren't putting them away. We weren't putting them to bed. It wasn't great through the air for both teams, and both defenses really stood up. Like let's not get this wrong. The Packers called a great game on defense. They were very, very good on defense, and they're not a bad defensive team either. One of the sorest moments of the night, and I mean that both physically and figuratively, was Nakobe Dean going down with what is a patellar tendon injury. I hope I pronounced that right. It's on par with an ACL. In fact, even worse for the long-term recovery is the reports I've been hearing. You might not get your explosiveness back, and it's a real shame. And when he went down and I saw Slay was out and he was out, I was thinking to myself, I'd rather Slay came back in. If we're going to lose one, I'd rather lose Slay. And now I'm not so sure with the way Isaiah Rogers played and the way our defense missed so many tackles without Nakobe Dean in the game, and the fact that he's the green dot. Right? Is it the green dot they call it or the red dot? I can't
Yeah,
remember.
green dye. Yeah.
The fact that he's the green dot, is a big change. You could see how frantic both linebackers were running up and backwards to the defensive line when Dean was out, and I hope they're going to need to turn that around. Um, just thoughts on the game, Phil, overall, before we get into the good, the bad, and the downright sexy. If I told you on Sunday morning that the Eagles were going to win 22-10, that Jalen Hurts was going to have 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, but not throw for many yards. Saquon Barkley was going to have 120 yards. We were going to face the Packers, but Nakobe Dean was going to be out. Would you have bit my hand off, or would you have wanted more?
Well, yeah, I think when you set it up like that, it goes without saying, doesn't mean you take the win all day long, regardless of the bits in between. Now we've got the win, we can sit here and dissect and pick fault if we want to, or complain or moan, or just in the good section, big up the people that did perform well, which there are obviously still a few. I think overall the game was, like you said, it wasn't pretty, it wasn't great. There wasn't any kind of explosive Saquon Barkley runs. There weren't any massive deep balls from Jalen Hurts to AJ Brown. AJ Brown had one catch all night for about 10 yards. It was just one of those nights where the win definitely covers up a lot of the bad points or the pit points that we're not happy with. So ultimately we don't care. But how the Eagles lost that game, man, would we be tearing this team to shreds? I think is the best way to put it.
Yeah, well said. There was one deep ball to AJ Brown. Just Jalen
Oh
Hurts
yeah, but he didn't catch it. So.
overthrew it. And I think a lot of people are saying Jalen overthrew it. When I look at the replay, AJ Brown doesn't look at full tilt to get the
Yeah, I'm
ball.
with you.
I wonder whether the lingering knee injury is a factor in him not being able to get up to full speed. I'd love someone to be able to do some analysis on what his usual miles per hour is chasing down a deep ball versus what his miles per hour was on this run, because it looked like he had like AJ Brown usually would have had more juice and would have gotten to that ball. Um, but then people who know me will probably say I've got Hertz tinted glasses on, and I'm a Hertz apologist. So
Well,
one of those
but no,
things is right.
I don't necessarily think that's the case, mate. I think I'm kind of with you on this one, and the reason I'm with you is because that play, looking back on it, great play, love it. By the way, third and short. When they know you're going for the tush push to not go for it, I've been banging on that. I think they've been missing a trick with the trick plays and the tush push, because that's you're getting everyone in the middle and you're leaving the rest
Hmm.
of the field wide open. So I was fantastic play call, but I think Jalen has to throw that ball far enough away from the two defenders that are chasing with him. So he's almost having to probably throw it a little bit further than where he'd like to throw it. If they'd completely busted it and AJ was clear, then he would have probably just like looped it up and it would have been a comfortable catch and touchdown. Obviously, I think because two defenders still went with him and they kept pace with him, he had to throw it over his head and far enough away so that AJ Brown could do it. And yeah, there's probably something to say that maybe he's not 100%, and either AJ wasn't expecting it, wasn't thinking in the moment that Jalen's going to have to throw it far away, so I'm going to have to maybe give it a bit of extra juice, a little bit of extra step, or maybe he just doesn't have that because the knee injury is just sort of limiting. He's only at 90%, so that extra
Mm,
10% was what was missing on that play. So
that
I'm kind
part,
of with you. I think it probably,
yeah.
I mean, we're speculating at the end of the day, but I like that logic more than I do Jalen not throwing it, because I think it was a difficult throw. He needed
Jalen's
to
a
throw
very
it away.
accurate deep ball thrower. I think he threw it where he meant to throw it.
Yeah,
And just to put more oil on this conspiracy fire, that I know Tony will like. If you look at AJ Brown's first catch, which he caught really low, he gets up quite slowly and feels his knee as he's walking across back to his mark.
I didn't
Um,
see that.
and no one's really talking about it. I didn't mention it at the time because I just wanted to pretend it didn't happen, and that was before the throw. So,
Mm.
um, yeah, maybe there is something to that. And another week, I mean, in all of his press conferences and every meeting he's had, he said, look, he's struggling with it, he's dealing with it, and on game day he's ready to go. So he's clearly, medicined up to high heavens to try and deal with the pain, and it's clearly an issue for him. All right, let's get into the good, the bad, and the damn rat sexy. So, I'm going to throw this over to you. Let's start on the. I don't like starting in the good because I don't like ending on the bad. So, can we start on the bad?
Yeah, I'll
That's
take the
correct.
bad if you want. I mean, I think the bad that we're going to be talking about, I think is it's set up perfectly for you to come in and dispel my negativity, because
Take it away.
we're talking about Jalen Hurts in the passing game. Now, before we get into this, I want to clarify this is not me saying Jalen Hurts played badly, because he didn't. His stats are perfectly adequate. They're just not exciting. They're not explosive. It's mainly around the passing game itself, and it just didn't have that feel. Like I said, there weren't that many deep balls apart from that one dropped or not missed catch from AJ Brown. The passing in general was clunky, as I usually call it, a bit boggy, as I mentioned in my post match review comments. Um, there just was something wrong quite right. And yes, you can quite easily look at the fact that Hertz was out for about 3 weeks with the concussion. He only had a practice and a half before the game. The counter to that is that there shouldn't really be much that Jalen needs to practice before going. They know the drill, but essentially, and the receivers. It's been noted on a couple of play. Dan Orlovsky's mentioned it even, and I know Fran Duffy has mentioned it. All the people that know their X's and O's have quite happily stuck up for Jalen and the guys and saying that the players just weren't getting open. Um, and you know, it, this, like I said, the stats are okay. Like the quarterback rating is very good. He only had a couple of sacks, 2 passing touchdowns, 13 catches out of 21 attempts. It's just low value stats. Um, but what my problem is that the concern, and I think you kind of touched on it in your opening comments, was that we're now into playoff football. Now we've had this conversation before where we're like, Joe's looking after the ball, he's playing it safe, he's managing it, and that's fine. And I think we all kind of went, yeah, all right, we'll take that. But I think that's good when regular season because you're trying to stack the wins, you're trying to get good seeding, and that's why it's important to make sure that you don't do anything stupid and put yourself on the back foot. We're now in playoff football, and it's win or go home, and there's the matches like the Rams game, whoever we might face in the conference and potential Super Bowl. Those are the 2-3 games where you have to be perfect. If you're not perfect, you don't turn up. You look at the Vikings like last night. They turned up. They didn't turn up, and then they just got absolutely boat raced. Whether we're not going to get into the details of why, but essentially, if you need to be firing on both sides of the ball. Complementary football, defense, offense, rushing, passing, all needs to be there. And the passing is probably the only one where we can consistently across the season had quips and qualms with it to say it's not what we expect. And I think like now is a time where my opinion maybe matters more than what you've been saying in regular season, which is, I'm sorry, Jalen, you're going to have to start playing a bit more dangerous play. You're going to have to put it in those tight coverage. Because if you don't make that play, it's not. You haven't got another game next week. You don't do it. And I feel like it's just more of a groan from the aspect of if the passing game is firing. And when we touch on the Rams preview later in the pod, that's one of my points for zigzagging. We absolutely rushed all over them. So we should really be hoping that the passing game's there because they're going to be really bothered by the fact they gave up 250 rushing yards to Saquon Barkley. So we need to get that passing game going. Now, Jalen Hurts is back. He's back, so we'll be practicing all week, pending any injuries that he picked up in the game, obviously. So I'm looking against the Rams for the passing game to be just more explosive, more dangerous, and looking like a team that's going to win the Super Bowl. And I think that's just generally the crux of what my gripe is and why I've put Hurts in the passing game in the bad column this week. So go ahead, Liam, take it away, dispel it all, and give us some positivity towards it.
Yeah, look, I just think there's a lot of mitigating circumstances, and my overriding. Before I say anything, I do not disagree that Jalen Hurts needs to be more aggressive with his passing, um, but I think the Devontae Smith has been injured and has had a stiff back. AJ Brown has been injured and has a knee problem. Dallas Goddard has missed time as well. Our three main weapons are not 100% fit, and they're not creating as much separation as they were earlier in the season, which is making Jalen Hurts hold on to the ball a little bit longer, and is why we're seeing more Jahan Dotson plays because he is fit and healthy. He's the one working back when Jalen's scrambling or still in the pocket for 8 seconds as he was on the touchdown. So I do think the wide receivers have a lot to answer for because the separation was not good. Again, I'd love someone smarter to me to do the analysis on their separation this Sunday versus their separation in earlier in the season. Um, I think the turnover differential is hugely in Jalen's mind after how much the Eagles were ridiculed in the first 4 games of the season because he was playing more dangerously with the ball and they were throwing more interceptions and they were losing games of football because we know the Eagles are 29-2 when the turnover differential around. And if you don't put the ball in danger, then you're not going to turn the ball over, and you almost play a possession game until you get the touchdown or you get the points. Because you're backing your defense to stop them and stop them scoring points. So I think there's an element there of Jalen hasn't been put in a situation where he's felt the need to play aggressive. He's not been put in a situation where the Eagles are losing by 2 touchdowns, and he needs to throw them, or even just a touchdown, and he needs to throw them back into the game, and they're really struggling. There was no need to force that when the Eagles were still winning comfortably and the defense was still stopping them. I think that Jalen Hurts has done enough in his career to show that he can make those throws, that he can make the deep ball throws. The amount of times we've seen him connect with AJ and Devontae Smith on one-on-one matchups, competitive, contested catches. So there's no doubt that Jalen can do it. It's just a case that he's choosing not to, and I think the reasons are he hasn't been forced to. The defense is playing well enough so he doesn't need to. The wide receivers are not getting as much separation as usual, so they're riskier throws. And he's worried about the turnover differential because he wants to win games of football. And for me, if they are the reasons, which I believe they are the reasons, because he's making a decision not to do it, it's not that he can't. We know he can. We've seen it every year. It's never been a problem with Jalen to make tight window throws, to make contested catch throws, to make deep ball accuracy. It's always been a strength of his, not a negative. So it's a conscious decision by Jalen, and I believe that it's for those reasons. And when we win a game of football, then I'm not worried. Um, Now, do I think that's going to happen on Sunday? No, because the way the Rams are playing at the moment, they're playing like a different beast to what they were earlier in the season. Cup and Nakua are fit. Stafford is fit. Kyron Williams is fit. They've got some real difference makers, and their defensive line is balling. It's a young defensive line, and they're balling out at the moment. So I think the Eagles are going to have a really tough game against the Rams, and I know we're going to get into the preview of that. And I think Jalen's going to be forced to make their throws this weekend. I just don't. It's not a case of Jalen can't do it. I think it's a case of Jalen's been making decisions not to because he hasn't been forced to. The defense has been playing well, and he wants to limit turnovers. Will he have to do that for the Eagles to win the Super Bowl? Goddamn right he will. Am I confident that he will be able to do it? Yeah, I am. Cool. Right. So Jalen Hurts, but I don't. I probably again. So I would disagree that Hurts is in the bad calling, but I can completely see why. Quarterback rating, no interceptions, didn't fumble the ball, 2 touchdowns, won the game of football. I wouldn't have him there, but I understand why you have him there. Numerous plays were also on the O line and receivers. Yeah, we kind of touched on that. O line didn't have the best game, apart from a couple of plays where it looked like they were blocking stones because they were just holding them for like 10 seconds. We need to be more dynamic on offense. Kind of just talked about that. And Jalen is looking after the ball. So I think it's pretty much the one negative, right? Other than the Kobe Dean is we need to see more out of the passing game, and but I'm confident we will when the need arises. But the need didn't arise, in my opinion. You look at Justin Herbert. Did he for 300 yards? You got damn right he did. Did he get 4 interceptions? You got damn right he did. Did they lose the game? You got damn right they did. Jaden Daniels, did he throw for loads of yards? Yep. Did he get 3 interceptions? Yep. Did they lose the game? Yep. Right? It's not a quarterback throwing game we're playing, right? There's different ways to win games of football, and the Eagles are doing what they need to do to win. Is there a risk that they come up against a better team where that won't work? Yeah. But I'm very confident the Eagles have it within Jalen Hurts and their wide receivers to make it work to win whatever way they need to. And at the moment, they're winning the way they are. There you go. That's a clip for you somewhere. Good stuff. All right, I'll throw it back over to you then, Phil, for the good part. And I want to leave you to talk about this segment as you and Tony talked about it in detail last week, and it was one of our most popular clips rewatched. Was is Jahan Dotson a bust? Tony arguing that he was, although he argues that whether he said bust or not. Tony, you pretty much said he was a bust, mate. I know you talked about the value, but you pretty much said he was a bust. Without saying it, you pretty much said it. Um, had I been on the podcast, and I think I said this in a WhatsApp group, I would have turned around and disagreed because, unlike Phil, I'd seen more in previous weeks, and the dirty work he's doing for the offense is, doesn't go unnoticed. But Phil, floor is yours, stage is yours.
Well,
What do you got to say? What do you got to tell Tony?
Well, like I'm going to stick up for both of you here. I think you're right. I used the word bust because it was easier to get a more clearer question out there as how you feel about Jalen Dotson across the world. Which got plenty of opinions. Some thinking yeah, some thinking no. So it clearly shows that there was a divide there. So neither side is particularly wrong in your own opinion. But what I wanted to see from him was that in that game, I took a lot of heart from the fact that he had his opportunity as wide receiver one, but he's spending 16 other games across the season, getting very little targets, not getting much opportunity. So you wanted to see that when the time comes, that he's going to make more of that, and the stats that he got against the Giants show that the Eagles could have confidence in scheming a few more plays up for him. Now, the touchdown that he caught in this game was not a scheme play for Jalen Dotson. It was the fact that it Hurts had a clean pocket for half the game, decided to throw at some point, and Jalen Dotson was the one that got the most open and caught his opportunity. So, but that's kind of what I was on about. So, those kind of things might not happen if he's cold or if he's not had any targets. He didn't have that Giants game.
You're not trying. You could like the situation he's been in, Phil. Like many players around the league would not be putting the fake runs in, would not be blocking for wide receivers, would not be doing the dirty yards. he was doing the 30 yards on that play, but he tried and kept going and kept going, and it was a lovely move to get to break free of him. He kind of
Yeah.
went right and left him for dead, and like he was open by a mile.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. I'm trying to summarize it up as best I can, but it's just more a case if you want to just see that there's something there. You don't want to be thinking, because I think up until the Giants game and the Packers game, I was sat there going, is he? He's not providing the value. Like Tony said, he's not providing the value for the capital that we got. I don't think, or many people didn't think. I was just more leaning more on the optimistic side of the ball that it's better to start late than never. And if he starts against the Giants, continues into the Packers game, and then into the playoffs, and ends up being that player that catches the Super Bowl winning touchdown,
Oh,
then
would you
it
love
doesn't
it?
matter. It doesn't matter what happens before that. So this is just a continuation of that, where it kind of manifested itself into him catching the early touchdown to get us off to a good start. And you know, had that been just down, kept out of the end zone and down to 3 points, it would have been a lot of a hell of a closer game,
Hey Phil,
considering.
is he catching one this week against the LA Rams?
I don't know. I think it's one of those things where I think it's a bit fluky that we kind of got into that point where he literally catches the first touchdown of the Packers game, and the fact that it wasn't a scheme play, it
It
would
was
would tend
glorious.
to would tend to lend itself towards the fact that it's not going to happen every week. It was just nice for it to be the recency bias of us going, well, let's hope that he goes in on a good playoff run. Bang, first offensive drive of the game, gets a touchdown. You're like, that's exactly what I was on about. So good. Congratulations.
Playoff Jahan, playoff
It could
Jahan.
be
Like
could be the new nickname.
we had playoff Kenny, playoff Jahan.
Mm.
Rings a nice bell for me. Anytime we get to point out that Tony was wrong is a favorite moment of mine. Sorry Tony. Better luck next time, buddy. I hope Jahan Dotson puts up 40 yards on 2 catches and a touchdown this weekend. I feel like genuinely like this is how bullish I'm feeling about Jahan Dotson. I think we might have solved our wide receiver three conundrum going into next year. I think he's learning a lot from Devontae Smith. I think it's taken him a while. He's not been given the opportunities. It's not like Jalen's been throwing him the ball and he's been dropping them. Like that's not what we've seen. We just haven't seen him be thrown the ball, and that's because Devontae Smith and Goddard and Barkley and AJ Brown are that's where hurts his first or second or third progression. It's very rare he's going to his fourth progression with that elite talent at the receiving position. So he's getting his chances, he's taking them, and that's all you can ask is a player that's trying, doing the dirty hard yards, and when he gets his opportunity and his chance, he's taking them. And with the Eagles' weapons, that's all you need out of a wide receiver three. So, my bold prediction is that Jahan Watson is the wide receiver three for the Eagles in 2025 season starter in the opening game.
Fair enough. I mean, it's quite bold to say that he, not the prediction for next season, but a bit before that. And I'm just like I think a lot of people just happen for him to be solid, which was the word which was used in one of the comments against the comment whether he's a bust. And my argument was you look at wide receiver three in the Vikings, Jalen Naylor,
Yep.
who'd had a lot better season as a wide receiver three, and I think that's where you're looking for a mark. Someone he's getting about 400-500 yards a season and chipping in with a handful of touchdowns. Six is probably a very very solid season, but you before that game he didn't have that. His first touchdown, he had 0 touchdowns for about 200 yards, and that's not really living up to the standard that you need to be supporting this cast. But fair enough, we'll see how it goes in the playoffs, and then we'll see if he's there wide receiver three next season.
It'll be interesting one to keep track of, won't it? Breaking
Mm.
news in the Eagles camp. Vic Fangio has come out to say, and I quote, I think Trot, i.e. Jeremiah Trotter Jr., has a great future, and that future may be now.
Yeah.
So insights into we probably should have our Orion Burks in the bad column. Actually, that might be a bit of a miss. Just like he missed every fucking tackle he was supposed to make on the field when he played. He's had some sporadically good games, Aaron,
Harsh
when
to
he's
put
come
him
in.
in the bad column when he was the one who got the special teams turnover at the start of the game.
Yeah, what was he the guy who made the tackle?
He's when he forced the fumble.
Yeah, I mean, but it should have been a flag. it was helmet to helmet straight up.
If
I was
that's how you're
supposed
going to
to.
look at it, I can't help you, Liam. Let's move on.
It was helmet to helmet. Like, I'm sorry, it should have been called a flag. I'm bloody glad it didn't. But like, I've
Probably
got
wasn't recovered either, but hey, moving on.
probably it was a flag and it wasn't recovered. Big Andy, who's in some of the
Yeah.
fantasy groups. He's a Packers fan. And he was like he was mouth breathing all over the place when that was going on.
Yeah,
He
but
doesn't listen to this podcast, but if he did, I would give him a shout out. All right. I'm gonna leave. I'm gonna leave you to do the second one on the list as well. I'm gonna pick up someone who I've been, I'm gonna use the word effusive about again a lot over the last few podcasts. And that guy is Dice, which is now my favorite nickname for any Eagles player by a mile. Dice, roll of dice is Nolan Smith. I said he was the new Brandon Graham on a couple of podcasts ago. I wonder whether he might even be the new Micah Parsons with his size, his speed, and now his production. 8.5 sacks since the start of the year this year, and most of them have come in the second half of the season. He has turned in and developed into the player that we hoped. The next time we have a defensive edge player who doesn't do much in his first year or 18 months, and I say he's a bust, slap me in the face, please, Phil. Because I was worried that
gladly.
I was worried that Nolan Smith was a bust, and he's absolute shagger, absolute shagger. 7 tackles, 3 solo tackles, 2 sacks, 2 tackles for loss, and QBH's quarterback hits, 8.5 sacks for the season. As I said, like he's my next jersey, Phil. It's not even close now.
It's
I wanna
funny.
know.
It's funny you say that because when we were over in Philly, I was struggling to get some of the jerseys that I'd gone over to specifically get Saquon Barkley
Mm,
white. I looked over and I saw Smith 3, and obviously this was quite early in the season before he did his breakout. And I looked and went, "Who the fuck's buying that?"
yeah,
And then
yeah.
obviously it's like I could have had that, and I could have been
Well, the
way
risk
ahead of the
was so
curve.
high, right? The risk is so
Yeah,
high when you've got a rookie who you don't know whether he's going to be traded because he's not playing well. And but I mean, look, Nolan Smith is locked in at the defensive end position for the next 10 years for the Eagles, and boy, does that make me so excited that he is a Philadelphia Eagle. He is a dog. He got the game ball from Sirianni, and as I've said on previous podcasts, I don't want to overjuice this, but it's not just his ability on the field, which is extraordinary. It's his energy, it's his vibe. It's if you see him after every play, wherever he makes a tackle, wherever someone else makes a tackle, wherever he makes a sack, like he's the most excited kid like on the field. Like he's so juiced up and pumped
two,
up
two,
for
two
the
quick
team.
points on that. That
Yeah,
I was listening to the PHOY and they mentioned that every time there's the defense is waiting to get into a snap, that voice you hear, that person shouting, because you always hear that like the sort of ambience, like players chatting and stuff like that. It's Nolan Smith every time, and
really.
yeah, they're saying it's him shouting, screaming, geeing everyone up. But quick question for you, actually, based on just on Nolan Smith. Do you think we'd be seeing this production last season if we'd had got Vic Fangio in the building last season when we should have got him? Or do you think that is just this season? Is just the way it's just he needed a season to get himself wet.
Um, I don't think so. I suppose I'll have to clarify the question. Would Vic Fangio have been the DC from the start of the year, or
Yeah,
just?
so we planned to get him, wasn't it? But before Jonathan Gannon kind of got ripped out, and it all kind of threw everything to chaos, and he ended up going to Miami. Um,
I think we
if
would have seen more production out of Nolan Smith, but I don't think we would have seen anywhere near this level of production. I think he needed it's. I think it's quite well known that defensive ends take, which is why my take was so bad in the summer or the
mm,
first few games of the season. It's quite well known that defensive end need a little bit of time. But Brandon Graham needed time before. You know, he needed quite a few years before he turned into the defensive end that he turned out to be. And if you look at someone like Will Anderson Jr., he was drafted in the top 5, was it last season? Didn't have an amazing first year, and now he's like tearing it up for the Texans. So I think defensive ends need a bit more time. I don't. Yeah. So is Vic Fangio a catalyst for this? 100%. Um, did Nolan? So I think the better question, the better question is, if Nolan Smith didn't have Vic Fangio this year, would we be seeing the production that he has?
yes,
And I think the answer to that is probably no, we wouldn't,
mm,
because Vic he clearly knows and sees what he wants out of his defensive line. There's a reason Hoff is nowhere to be seen because he just knew. instinctively that he hasn't got the right mindset, physical attributes, whatever it is. He knew. There's a reason we saw Nolan Smith play nearly every snap of preseason, and because Vic Fangio kept coming out and saying he needs more snaps, he needs more snaps, he needs more snaps, he needs more snaps. So I think would Nolan Smith have turned into a good defensive end regardless? Yeah. It might have taken him a couple more years than this year if Vic Fangio wasn't there.
Fair enough.
Cool, good question. Right, let me throw it back at you, and I'll let you read out the quote that's written down in front of me.
It's not. Wait, I suppose I don't know if it classes as a quote, if it's something I've just created out of thin air, but it's just what went through my mind when trying to sort of write down some points about Dallas Goddard and the impact he had in this game, and it just reminded me of like the player that he did it on was Valentine. So the quote's like "Sit your ass down, Valentine," because it sounds like it should be a quote out of like Die Hard or something, but it's for
Yeah,
me it's just the way to sum up how that play went because and speaking back to spoilers from the WhatsApp group, that was one play that kind of got hugely spoiled for me because we hadn't even gone up to the line of scrimmage and people who were
yeah,
watching it on Sky were going, got it, and I was like, what? 'Cause we were
I
like
know.
20 yards out
I
still,
don't
and
look at
Joe.
my phone anymore now. I just can't. I
It's
wait
probably
till
for
the
the best.
I wait till the drive is over and then I look at it.
I think that was the one moment that I got caught out on it, and I was like, oh, but kind of did stop me enjoying it. But it's just like especially when you saw the way Dallas got it, how he caught it, sort of one armed, really far away from his body, still managed to stay in bounds, and then stiff arm not once, not twice, but three times. Valentine, the cornerback, I believe,
Yeah.
in the end zone. I think PHIY again. Listened to that earlier. We're saying that I think the third face stiff arm was probably unnecessary. He was already in, but it was almost like here's one for good measure. Get out of it.
Here's one for good luck.
And the fact that it went in for a touchdown and how it came about, that guy is not going to be wanting to switch on his TV for a good few months because that is going to be played over and over again.
His
Going into the
wife ain't
T.
going near him for a couple of weeks. She's that embarrassed for him.
But yeah, like I said, the catch, the staying in bounds, the balance, the stiff arm, and the fact that he has what I'm told, I haven't verified this, but the guys were saying that he's won the angry run scepter from
It
Carl
has.
Brandt this week, and I feel it feels like it couldn't have been anybody else. I haven't seen much else, but it was just that good. It's like there couldn't be anything out there better than that in terms of how angry. It's almost like there was like 3-4 weeks of
The
questioning.
Josh Jacobs run against us was pretty good in the second
Oh
half.
yeah, yeah. To be
He
fair,
burnt
just
through quite a few players. I,
trying to
I
block
haven't
that
seen the
out.
angry runs either, but I would imagine that's on there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But I think it feels like there was like 3-4 weeks of frustration, criticism. You know, we've been talking about his availability this season, so I suspect there's been a strong murmur in the fan base, kind of questioning whether we're going to go for our tight end high in the draft. And he's probably some of that's probably seeping through. It felt very much in that moment. It was just like, here's what I can do. Like
Is
you,
that
you
is
think
that him turning around, say like stick it to the man, like
it's like boom. You're thinking of getting another tight end. Boom.
boom,
You're thinking I can't do it anymore.
boom.
Boom. I can't contribute to the team. What are you on about? Here's a touchdown for you. So
I love it.
it was great. And you know, like I said, through his availability and his he got back to what he does best: blocking, stiff arming, scoring touchdowns. 4 catches off of 6 targets, 47 yards and a touchdown, second highest receiving yards on the team behind Devontae Smith at 55 yards. But I feel like that 47 yards and a touchdown is deserving of the downright sexy award potentially, and probably most likely the Loch Lomond Player of the Week as well. And I feel like that's all that really needs to be said on him.
Yeah, I mean, one more thing to say. Like, it was when you were doing your boom boom thing, and you got me all riled up just listening to you say it. Like, the only thing that would have been better is if he ripped his jersey off and went, "Are you not entertained? Are you
Yeah,
not
just shredded
entertained?"
himself, just walked off.
Like channeling his inner Russell Crowe from Gladiator. Um, Good stuff. Love that. Cool. All right. So also on the good this week, defense as a whole. Please give our flowers to Vic Fangio and that defense. Kept an offense averaging 27 points to just 10 and 319 total yards. Intercepted Love 3 times. He's a QB that hasn't been picked off in 2 months. Bourne got his pick, and come on, let's give it a bit of love to our guy Q Quinion,
Finally,
Quintanamo Bay, Mitchell, who's actually trademarked Guantanamo Bay now. Um,
Quinyanamo.
Quinyanamo, excuse me, Quinyanamo Bay. Shout out to him. Finally got his pick, and probably too late for defensive rookie of the year, I think, after the last couple of weeks. But look, We said one of our biggest risks going into this game was Q dropping off a little bit into the end of his first season, and he had a very good game. A very good game. Jalen Carter also shout out for his bat down pass, and I believe there were a few holding calls on him and Milton Williams, who also had another strong game for the Eagles. This defensive line is looking like seriously impressive now, considering how worried we were going into the new season and at the start of the season. All right, that's a wrap for the good, the bad, and the damn right sexy. Let's give our awards out. You give the Luck Loman Play of the Week out, Phil, and I will give the damn right sexy. In fact, I will give the damn right sexy out, so you can then give the Luck Loman Play of the Week. I'm not giving both to Dallas Goddard. I am giving the damn right sexy to Nolan Smith for his two sack performance at critical times. He was the player of the game for me. 7 tackles, 2 sacks, 2 tackles for loss, 2 QB hits. He was the energy for that defensive line that stopped the Packers scoring points, which eventually led to us winning the game. So give the damn right sexy award to Dice and Lachlan Play of a Week. I presume you're giving to.
Yeah, we'll give it to Dallas Goddard. I think it's fair enough. I think it makes more sense that way, especially considering the moment that we're highlighting for Dallas Goddard is one moment. It's an epic moment.
Yeah.
So he has to get Lachlan Player of the Week, and Nolan Smith generally for his performance in this game, but also in the performance in the second half of the season. 8.5 sacks, like you said. Yeah, no questions from
Happy
my
with
one.
that. Happy with that. All right, let's get to the Loch Lomond ad after we've had the Loch Lomond Play of the Week. And we'll be back in 60 seconds with our review of the LA Rams.
Celebrate victories, rally through challenges, and bond with fellow fans as you toast with a dram of Loch Lomond single malt whisky. From tailgating gatherings to watch parties at home, Loch Lomond whisky becomes an essential companion, enhancing the moments that make football so extraordinary. It's the perfect accompaniment, from the joy of victory to the bittersweet moments of defeat. Loch Lomond offer a wide range of malts, with their flagship perfectly balanced, and signature expressions Inchmoan and Inchmuren to suit any taste palate. Celebrate greatness on and off the field this season with a perfect balance of Loch Lomond whisky and Eagles football. From the first pour to the crowd roar. Fly Eagles fly.
Go Birds. And if you're not toasting to a lovely glass of Loch Lomond single malt whiskey this Sunday coming, watching the Birds at home, please come and join us down at Passyunk Avenue for our NFL quarterfinal watch along. You keep wanting to call it quarterfinal for our divisional round watch along down at Passyunk Avenue. I think we've got something like 25 people signed up already. Also, if you're listening in, I'll be putting a poll out in the British and Irish Eagles chat. We've also secured 50 spots for the NFC Championship game, and we have filled up our 50 spots for the Super Bowl. If we make it there as well. So we're at Passyunk the next 3 weeks, 3 of the next 4 weeks in a row. See if you can get down to one of them, Phil, if your wife lets you. I know that's one you're trying to get past there. So we'll all say our prayers for you that you might be able to get down to one of those games if we do indeed make it through. Good. All right. Well, moving past that, let's look at the playoff game against the LA Rams. Obviously, it goes without saying, devastated to see and hear what's been going on in Los Angeles with the wildfires, and all of their thoughts and prayers are in our mind. And it would be remiss of me not to also comment about the scumbag at the Eagles game this Sunday just gone by. Go on our Twitter. We have tagged in his employer and outed him, as many others have, for his disgusting, abusive, sexist, derogatory abuse of a Packers fan woman during the game. And I think I say what we're all thinking, and that I hope that guy, and he's been banned now from the link by Big Dom. Of course, Big Dom was the one who found him, banned him, and I hope that's ruined his life, because it's And I can imagine if I'm a diehard Eagles fan and I was banned from life, that would certainly be mine. And yeah, anyway, we stick together. We're a good fan base, despite what people say. We just, the majority of us just have a bit of passion sometimes. Like in every fan base around the world, you're going to find some wrongins. And for one, I'm glad now that he has been removed from all future engagement with the Philadelphia Eagles, so we don't have anything to do with him. Good.
Message has been clearly sent. Sorry, just to add my 2 cents. Message
Yeah.
has been clearly sent. That's what you do. You make an example of someone. I do have a little bit of sympathy. I feel like the Twitter mob can sometimes go a bit too far. So I do hope that, as a person, he learns from it and
Yeah.
doesn't do this sort of again, but also that his life continues to function. Because I don't want, when your work gets torn away like that just over a stupid comment, then I do have a sort of sense of pity and sympathy, and I just hope that he learns from it. But from a team perspective, hopefully it shows the team that the franchise is sending a message out that it's unacceptable, and in future games, if something like that happens, that people will call it out, or be just be deterred from being an asshole.
Yep.
Probably
Here,
you can't help everyone, but hopefully.
Here. I love that. Right, let's look against the Rams then. So coming into our house after we mauled them, Saquon Barkley's 300-yard scrimmage game. Last time out, we destroyed them off the park. But as I think I alluded to earlier on, sometimes teams get hot. There was a question posed in the British Nationals chat, which was like in baseball, teams can get hot in the playoffs, and from being a subpar team during the year, they can go away and win it all. We've seen that in the last couple of years, 2 seasons in a row, really, where that's happened in baseball. You don't tend to see it happening so much in the NFL. I think that's fair to say. In most teams, if you look at the Buccaneers, if you look at the Patriots, if you look at the Chiefs, even you look at the Ravens that year, Steelers going back to the Broncos, like tend to be teams that have dominated all year and then continue to dominate in the playoffs. But there's not to say that can't happen. And while the Rams aren't in many of the top 10 categories, um, that doesn't matter. Like, look, they just dismantled and destroyed the Vikings, one of the best stat-led teams in the NFL. And this is a team that has Puka Nakua, who's fit. They've got Cooper Kupp, who's fit. They've got Tyron Williams, who's fit. They've got one of the best passing quarterbacks of the last 20 years in Stafford. Their defensive line is young and hungry, and is getting to the quarterback. Imagine they still had Aaron Donald. Aaron Donald isn't still playing, is he? Retired last year.
Yeah, he's gone.
Imagine they still had Aaron Donald. Uh, I think we win this game, Phil. I do think we win this game. But I think it's going to be closer than we would have thought. Than I certainly thought before yesterday's performance by the Rams. Just give me your feeling going into this game. Where do you think the game is won or lost for us against the Rams? Do you think the game will be lost? Do you think there's no chance of us losing this game? Are you that confident, or how are you feeling?
Well, I didn't want to face the Rams. My predictions had the Vikings win out, partly because I feel like the Vikings were going to be better than they were last night, but also because I'd rather face them because I feared them less. Despite the records, I feel like the Rams are a player team, like you said. They can get a bit of momentum, a bit of heat in the playoffs, and could be very, very difficult. Whereas the Vikings were already kind of up, but had a little bit of a stuttery end to this season, losing to the Lions, missing out on the 1 seed, and going down to the 5th seed. It's For me, it's going to be about the little things, and one of the big little things, to put a contradiction in there, is the fact that the Rams have headed back to LA, but because of obviously everything that's going on back home, there's big question marks over whether they'll be able to practice in their facilities. So, and also being on a shorter week, they'll be getting back. They'll have gone back today, probably some point, maybe now. They'll try and practice maybe tomorrow if they can. Then you're talking Wednesday, Thursday. Then they're going to have to be flying out to the East Coast again, to Philadelphia. So there's going to be a good chance that their preparation is going to be severely hindered and not settled. So that's going to be huge, because I imagine if the shoe was on the other foot and we were having to head out to LA after 2-3 days, and that we weren't able to practice properly, or uncertainty, the injury reports all over the place, it doesn't put you in the best frame of mind for one of the most important games that you're potentially going to have in the season. So I think it's a little thing because it's not part of the game, but it's a big thing in terms of the impact they could potentially have. The Rams are that team, and you mentioned all the players they've got. They got ridiculed for basically having to fill their team with draft picks because they'd lost so many players and they didn't have any money to sign players. But it's kind of working out for them. They're young, they're hungry, they've got a lot of talent. Jared Verse, Fisk, like you mentioned. It's going to be a tough game, but my confidence definitely comes from the game that we had in LA. So not only did we beat them sufficiently in their home, we're now at home. I feel like that's another factor. It's going to be harder for them, easier for us. And one of my keys to victory, as I mentioned earlier, is the fact that because we had such like Saquon Barkley's almost best career stats ever, and rushed and 300 scrimmage yards for Saquon Barkley, gives us an opportunity to pivot from the run game, because you're going to be wanting to make sure that doesn't happen again, which gives you hopefully a little bit more wiggle room to be a bit more creative in the passing game. And given that the passing game was so tepid against the Packers, I'd like to think that they're going to have another week of preparation with Hurts, and that there's an opportunity there. So that gives me another bit of confidence that if they can do that, then it's going to be really, really hard for the Rams to sort of game plan defensively for the Eagles. So I'm feeling more confident than I did before I found out it was the Rams. I didn't want the Rams, but now I'm looking at it, watched them last night. The Vikings weren't great. The Rams have got a lot of things that are counting against them. The only thing that sort of tapers that is Nakobe Dean. Obviously, I feel like Bourne and Nakobe Dean were just solid. Didn't even think about it. They're just so good. And because Dean's the green dot, like you said, are they going to have that organisation, that leadership in the secondary? And I feel like that's a big question mark. But I think generally overall, I feel confident. It's at the link. The atmosphere is going to be amazing. The Rams are going to be hopefully tired and not well rested. I feel like there's a lot of things stacking up to support us in our favour, and I feel like as long as we don't do anything stupid, I think if we lose, it's because we've beaten ourselves, in which has been the story for most of the season. If we play a game on defense and the offense is at least 50%, we should comfortably win the game. If the offense comes out to play and improves on the Packers game, then it's almost not in doubt for me, I suppose.
Yeah, I was just while I was listening to you there, I was just doing a little bit of research on the injuries for the Rams. Did you know that Tyler Higbee left the game in the third quarter with a chest injury and actually ended up in hospital in a stable condition?
Yeah. If you wander down to the injury report, Liam, it's all there.
Oh, my bad. I didn't realize.
It's on the next page. But no, I quickly managed to look on the Rams wire or whatever it was, and there was quite a bit of detail on Witherspoon, cornerback. He left the game on Monday night with a thigh injury. Higbee, obviously said, went to hospital, and he was in a stable condition, apparently, with a chest injury, which leads you to think that, like, when they use the word stable condition, that something quite significant.
He ain't playing if they say that, surely.
Yeah, and Bobby Brown III left the game also with an apparent shoulder injury, but we won't know until the injury reports are out whether they're just game knocks or whether they're significant injuries that might take them out of practice for the week. And given that they've not potentially got many practices, it's going to be hard for them to determine whether they're all going to be fit.
Yeah, absolutely. And do not be surprised to see Darius Slay, AJ Brown, and Devontae Smith all on the injury report this week. Slay, because obviously it happens every single week. Like, he keeps coming back into games, and fair play, but he keeps getting injured and then coming back. I wouldn't be surprised if Jalen has a rest day or two with his finger still. AJ Brown will definitely be on the injury report in some regard, and so will Devontae Smith. If they're not, then that's a really good sign for their health going into next weekend's game. But I think you can probably more likely to see that. All right, Phil, then before we wrap up, look at this. Look at the podcast time. This is unbelievable. Before we wrap up, what are your score predictions for this Sunday against the Rams?
It's so damn difficult to pick, because, like I said, that we don't know what kind of Rams team's going to turn up. But I feel like, going with the consistency that the Eagles have generally shown across the season, I think we're going to keep them to sub 17 points. I reckon about 15, 16 points, I think.
But that offense, you just put up 37 against one of the best defenses in the league.
Yeah, but there was a lot of turnovers and a lot of fumbles and a pick six or scoop six. I think there's a lot of reasons to not read too much into the dominating performance on the offensive side of the ball. I think the Vikings did a lot to beat themselves. As for our points, again, it's even more difficult because on one hand, if the offense comes out firing and the passing game's back up to speed, I reckon it'll be 30, 31 points. If not, it could be another similar game to the Packers, and we'll keep them to 15 points and maybe put up 24, which doesn't help you because I'm not really giving you a prediction. What do I think's actually going to happen? I'm going with the positivity. I think that the Eagles' passing game is going to be coming back out, and Barkley's going to enjoy running again on the Rams, get some more yardage. I feel like it's going to be a 34 point. All right, I'll go 34-17 because I feel like that's where I'm hovering at.
34-17. I like that. Lots of positives there. I think it's going to be a closer game than that. I'm going to go for 28-24 to the Eagles. I think the Rams, if they play the way they can, could put up some points against us. I think Jalen is going to be forced to throw the ball a bit more. I think Saquon will have a day. I think we'll come out of that game feeling more confident going into the Lions game, even though the score isn't a massive difference in scoring. I feel like we'll be more confident in the way we played. It'll be a tough game. And the Eagles win 28-24 as we go on to the semifinals, i.e. the NFC Championship game, which will almost certainly be against the Lions. Who are the Lions playing now?
Washington.
The Commanders. Yeah, I mean, the Lions are going to absolutely obliterate the Commanders. It's going to be embarrassing to watch. I wouldn't tune in if you know any Commanders fans. I wouldn't tune in for that game. Then the Eagles will beat the Lions in their home turf in the semifinal, i.e. the NFC Championship. And then we will go on to win the Buffalo Bills, who will be our AFC competitors in the Super Bowl. That's my prediction for the next few weeks.
It's going to be hard for them to win the Super Bowl if the Ravens have got there, mate.
Ravens could definitely get there. I mean, Hurts versus Lamar Jackson Super Bowl? That will be a good watch indeed. Right, Bird Gang, we've done a podcast in less than an hour, which I'm absolutely delighted about. We did it early in the day, so I have my evening back. The Birds win. They go through to the divisional round against the LA Rams. We will be there at Passyunk Avenue, Leek Street, Waterloo on Sunday. Game kicks off at 8 p.m. local time. Come and join us. Come and have a cheesesteak with us. Come and have a pickleback and a tin. We'd love to see you there. We're looking forward to the game. And yeah, everyone listening in who's watching it elsewhere, I hope you enjoy it. As I said on previous podcasts, we're lucky that the Eagles are perennial playoff teams. So enjoy every moment in which they are. We wish Nakobe Dean a swift recovery as possible. And I think that's all she wrote, Phil. Thanks for joining me, and go Birds, everyone.
Go Birds.